we're going to go through is they recently just signed the budget for the housing and urban development budget for FY 2026. Now, the interesting part about here is here's what I'll look at, right? Last year, the tenant-based rental assistance, right? This includes all the vouchers for all of your Section 8 properties. And here's what I see right away, right? Essentially, you're seeing that it has gone up a little bit. Originally, if you saw my live, maybe like a couple months ago, we were talking about, hey, what does it mean if they don't re- put in additional budget, especially for the renewals, right? Because that means there's extra budget compression on it. So that's one thing you want to look at, right? There's some good articles here that you can kind of see, but for the most part, they are going to renew their housing choice vouchers. So this is enough to renew the existing. But again, there's not that much room for rent increases. So I'm not really banking on that specifically, right? So if you're a Section 8 investor, let me try to break it down for single family, multifamily, and ground developers, right? So when I read this, I think you have to start targeting more recession resilient type of segments where you might want to look at housing for the elderly in section 202. I mean, persons with disabilities, right? These programs got funding increases. And you can kind of see how it breaks down right here. Project-based rental assistance. So this is going to be your properties specifically here. Slight increase for the elderly, slight increase for the folks here. Probably the elderly got the biggest boost here, if you really think about it on a percentage wise. So just something for you to be mindful of, right? Is that where policy is going? Can't guarantee it, but hey, at least now you know, right? Now, I think what I read is that there's going to be a 26% staffing decrease at HUD. So that could either mean delays in their inspections, delays in processing new vouchers. So you might want to think about how do you ensure you have more cash reserves to cover those potential dark days between tenants, for lack of better words. Now, the project-based rental subsidies is going to be at 18.5 million. So I think there are going to be some properties that are going to still get those project-based those vouchers, right? And just remember, project-based vouchers are subsidies that stays with the unit versus housing choice vouchers, which is formerly known as Section 8 vouchers, that gets moved with the tenant. So you have to understand how does this all work? And having that project-based rental assistance allows you to underwrite your property, specifically understanding that the rents can be brought up to near market rates, right? And it's all being paid for or subsidized by the federal government. So something that you really want to make sure you understand this, right? Now, if you want to think about how to analyze your deals a little differently, I think there is a lot of rising financial pressure. And especially if you think that there are going to be some job losses with how AI is going. I mean, maybe it doesn't happen this year, but maybe in 2, 3 years down the road, you might have to think about, hey, what is my economic occupancy, right? What's my vacancy, right? How do I reduce my turnovers? How do I improve the tenant retention? You have to start thinking about that stuff now. Now, with interest rates starting to stabilize, right? You're probably not going to see too many big moves of it. Those floating rate terms, if you're a multifamily investor, I mean, if you can move to either a 10-year fixed rate financing or something like that, that's all going to be really, really valuable for you to think about. Now, for ground up multifamily developers, I think the biggest change here was that moving from the 50% to the 25% bond test, which means that for all your tax credit deals, your 4% tax credit deals, right? This reduced the bond financing threshold. So when that went from 50 to 25%, that allows you to potentially pursue building more units with less expensive debt. Something that you really want to think about. All right. Now, the home program, that was one of the programs that was really at risk of getting cut entirely. And luckily, I think they just kept it flat. So again, if you were looking for home funds, I mean, this was a pretty wicked crowd. That could have gone away, but I think they kept it pretty much it's just the same thing so that they don't affect any existing projects. But who knows? I think that was really risky, and you're gonna have to start thinking about how different public-private partnerships look like, especially if you have some gap in your financing stack. Now, with that staffing cut on HUD, sometimes when we usually think about HUD loans, we would say like, oh, HUD loans, downside with them is that they take minimum 6 to 9 months, right? But I've heard as long as 12 to 18 months. And now you really have to start thinking about like, hey, what if this HUD loan takes 12 to 18 months for the deal to close? And that's real risk, right? So you got to think about this logically and not rush into some overly optimistic assumptions for how you analyze your deals. So this is probably a pretty good explanation of what has happened with the new budget that HUD released, right? Thankfully, some of your contract renewals are going up just by a little bit. So that, again, I still think getting new vouchers are going to be hard. I'll be honest with you. And I still think that there's going to be price pressures on trying to increase rents for that fact as well, unless you are potentially in a very tenant friendly state where they might be trying to pull in state funding specifically to help bridge that gap if for some reason folks don't match what's happening in reality with the market. Because if all of your tenants and their vouchers don't support a rent increase, then you're going to start catching yourself behind the market. All right. Hopefully it's helpful for everybody. Again, I would encourage you to do your own research. I'll probably spend a few more days on this and just dive deeper into like, hey, what does it mean for Section 8 single family investors? What does this mean for multifamily investors? What does this mean for ground developers, right? And I'll probably try to do a more targeted approach, but I didn't want you guys to miss this news because this just came out. I think it literally just got signed February 3rd. Oh, that was a tax. And February 3rd is when they signed it to pass the full HUD funding bill. All right. So check it out. I'll see you all tomorrow for day 859. Have a good one, everybody.